Welcome to The Call to Rise, the podcast for sacred rebels, visionaries, and conscious changemakers. Here we sit down with the people birthing the new earth, weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy to build movements that heal, transform, and uplift our world. I'm Makenzie Darling, your host, inviting you into honest conversations, practical tools, and hard-won wisdom to awaken your power and to inspire you to answer the call to rise and to meet this moment in history. My guest today is Laura Rowe, an intuitive healer and empath mentor and founder of the Vital Spirit. Laura helps empaths and sensitive souls heal, honor their sensitivity, and live alignment. Welcome, Laura. How are you doing? It's so amazing to have you here.
I am happy to be here. I'm doing good. I'm enjoying the final stage of summer, waiting my precious fall. Life is good.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I just want to say for the listeners, it's so special to have you on this podcast because you've really been with me from the very beginning. Like you have been my coach, helping this empath walk through the fire of stepping into my own movement. And so it just feels really aligned and sweet to be able to interview you and share you with the rest of the world, because I think a lot of people need to be working with Laura. She's incredible.
Thank you so much. It's such a blessing and an honor. I love working with you. You are mad genius, and I can't wait to see where this goes because it's going to be awesome.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you. So, what you do is so near and dear to my heart. As I'm the founder of Movement Maker, I think really underneath the hood of what I'm trying to build is getting more empaths and more highly sensitive people into sacred leadership and movement building, because we desperately, desperately need that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And so I'd love for our audience, why don't we start off with, can you define what an empath is and what's the difference between someone that's sensitive and someone that is an empath?
Empaths, all empaths are highly sensitive. Not all highly sensitive folks are empaths. I explain it as it's evolved for me over time, because my understanding of science has expanded. And even though this is not technically approved of as a definition, it is based on physiology, not merely psychic senses. So that is the difference. The difference between HSP and empath is the psychic senses. Now that I understand that better, we have this highly attuned nervous system. It is able to take in a lot of data. We don't, as empaths, prune our neurotransmitters the same way other people do. Most people do. And because we have more, that means what we're taking in and filtering through, examining, responding to is so much greater, making us more sensitive to everything. Because in fact, we are picking up everything. And again, on that spectrum, it is a spectrum of sensitivity. There are less sensitive empaths and more sensitive empaths, HSPs as well. So it's really having this nervous system that's super sharp and picking up every little nuance to energy and having an ability to interpret that as psychic data. So if we trust it, if we're encouraged to trust it, we can learn to discern something is off in here. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to figure it out, or I'm just going to leave because it doesn't feel good. And having the ability to trust ourselves that that's the right thing for us.
Yeah. And I think what you just touched upon is really, really important, because so many empaths, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know that this was my own experience as I was growing up, is those sensitivities were actually very much shut down and very much told over and over again, I'm too much, I'm too sensitive. And so it was like something was wrong with me, and I wasn't able to flourish those gifts.
Right. So many people have that experience from, those of us with I don't have clairvoyance, but I know a lot of people who do. And that one in particular, as a child, if you're seeing spirits or entities and everyone's like, either, shh, we don't talk about that, that's a secret, or you're nuts, keep that to yourself, that's not real, you're imagining it, then we don't trust ourselves. And that, I think, is the number one harm done to empaths is that we learn to not trust ourselves because either our parents don't share that experience or they don't trust themselves and have been told as well that that's not trustworthy. So it's just passed on that our skill is silly, inconvenient, a pain in the ass.
I love that you bring up the example of like seeing ghosts and spirits because when I was younger, I actually did see spirits all the time. I was very scared of the dark, and I would ask my
Yep.
mom and dad to keep the light on every night. And then when they went to bed, before they went to bed, they would turn off the light, which would just
Hmm.
scare me to death in the middle of the
Yeah.
night when I woke up, in the dark. And so it's such a great reminder to actually be listening to our children of what their needs
Yes.
are, and then having mentors in place that actually could help them open up these gifts if they're seeing these things.
Yeah, just normalizing it goes
Yep.
so far in confidence, and more than building confidence, it doesn't shatter confidence. It doesn't take where it was being fostered. And that label of sensitive, I get it. We are not living in a culture that is very honoring of that. And I think our parents, I know my parents were trying to protect me by toughening me up or having me look at things from other people's perspective instead of honoring my own. Because the another piece of the empath is we have kind of a built-in justice system that
Hmm.
doesn't conform to rules of society, laws that man have made. It reflects universal law, the that we are all equal. Our fair meter is finely tuned, like everything else. We're like, that is not fair. And it's not to be glossed over because we're not going to let it go.
Pretty much my whole life, I've been like operating on a completely different operating system
Yeah.
and just being so thrown when
Yeah.
people like don't operate with their heart open and like
Right.
justice and equality and fairness. I thought everyone operated that way throughout your entire existence. You just kind of get like knocked in the head. Over and over and over
Yeah.
again until you have this awakening of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm an
Hmm.
empath and I actually operate on a much more, as you said, open and energetic and intuitive
Yeah.
level. Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And, it really is true. Kids are really born with their own system, their own belief system in place, their own personality set. And you can try to and succeed often at shaping it, but you are taking away their freedom of choice, their own spirit. Training, quote unquote, is breaking one's spirit. And I'm not saying never punish a child, but I am saying help them understand why you're making choices and decisions and honor their frustration with it or their point of view with it. And especially if it's not something you can change. It's a system thing that you have to go with. Help your kid understand they're not crazy.
And so I'm hearing you say that being an empath really is more of a biological thing. Can you learn to be an empath, or is it just you can
Yeah.
learn to be more empathic?
I think you can. Everybody born is born an empath. The relationship we have with our mother, usually the mother, chemically is built to have a telepathic connection until we are told it doesn't exist. So when we go to school, 7-ish, we kind of unlearn it because we are put in a classroom with a different structure and a different authority, and it's different. Until that point, our brains could not learn from a book the vast knowledge we have to learn in 3 or 4 years to talk and walk and feel and identify feelings and, motor skills, like all the things we learn intuitively, we learn telepathically through our parents. So we all start there. And I do
Mhm.
think that it is possible to learn it. But it is counterculture. Being a healthy empath is deciding I care more about my health than fitting in to the traditional structure. And in that sense, I think there's a lot of resistance to it.
Interesting. And I'm wondering, like, from that telepathic. I mean, I grew up, if I was taking my telepathic learning from my parents or from my mother, I'm very
Right.
surprised that I would end up as an empath because I was not telepathically learning that.
Well, and that's a tricky one because they're not aware. I am of the idea that this is genetic
Mhm.
and we are inheriting these things. Now, their choice to go against that inherent gift is not surprising. It's what most of our parents and their parents did
Mhm.
to varying degrees of success. I personally believe what ends up happening is you become a narcissist. That is the opposite of someone who is highly sensitive trying to fit in. Is you just can't do it successfully. You
Mhm.
can't shun the sensitivity. You cocoon up, you focus on you, and you become loud about you. And it has effects. It has a lot of effects on people, but it doesn't surprise me. I think the younger generations of beginning primarily in Gen X, though each boomer, the greatest generation, there is a certain percentage of empaths in those. I think it got more in Gen X, millennial, definitely Gen Z, and on, where we're just not gonna become the thing. It's not coded in us to be like them. We
Yeah, and
don't
so,
want
I've been
conformity.
thinking about that. It feels like a very evolutionary
Yes.
scale. And we're
Yep.
seeing this as we begin to awaken more. And I'm wondering if that has to do with, that we're really like the first generations of more safety. And so we're able, it's actually a privilege to be able to
I think so.
heal and to awaken and
Yep.
to start thinking about other people because up until the point of our ancestors, it was, fight or flight. Where am I
That's
going to
right.
get my food?
Yep, that's exactly right. For sure. And I think absolutely is evolutionary. I think this, whatever mechanisms, I kind of believe that evolution is a response to a system. It's not intelligent per se, though it has intelligence. But I don't believe there's a man with a beard in the sky making decisions about these things. I do think it's a response. And the response is this is not sustainable, this way of being in relationship with one another. So we get sort of dropped into more denser population of people like you and I
Mhm.
into a more privileged society that allows us to heal. And when we've done the healing work, we can go, hey, guess what? I see you. You could do this too. And not everyone's going to. I don't think that's necessary. My theory on evolution kind of goes to the 100th monkey idea, which is an experiment that they did with teaching monkeys on an island somewhere off of Africa to use a tool. And when they had taught 100 monkeys, the monkeys not only on the mainland, I mean on the island, had all learned it, but the mainland had learned it too. And no
Mhm.
one had gone there to teach them. It just became part of the zeitgeist.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that's what is happening with this evolution process is, we've got some kickback, we've got some fight,
Mhm.
people wanting to do away with or make empathy a flaw. That's what Musk and
Yeah,
Peter
well, that's
Thiel are
what
trying
woke
to do.
culture, woke culture. I think it's interesting that woke is being used as a condescending term. Very, very interesting.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
and what you were
interesting.
talking about with the 100 monkeys reminds me of when we bring it back to movement making, the
Yes,
3.5% adoption curve.
that's
And
right.
so you work with like early innovators and
Yep,
the people, and then it eventually just becomes into mainstream culture.
exactly. And when I started this journey, so my background is in business, and I was doing tech consulting and strategic consulting for small to medium businesses for 8 years and never dreamt to be doing this. That was not even a glimpse. And it wasn't until I left my husband, who displayed a lot of narcissistic qualities, and started looking at why did I choose that? What made me pick that? And doing my healing work, as my therapist said, I think you're an empath. I don't know a ton about it, but this is who you can read, which was Judith Orloff, the only person talking about it at the time. This was 2005. I just became super curious about it. And I remember doing searches on what is an empath and like reading these lists. And it was always like early blogs from like not professionals. There's very little professional material on this. So I'd be reading this list and going, okay, these are your characteristics. Some of this is empath, so I just kind of started with working list and like, how short can I make the list and include the main things I see, which is feeling what other people are feeling, knowing what other people are feeling, and this desire to caretake that is inherent and natural and part of our being. Also, not a trauma response. I'll get to that in a minute. Also, this kind of worldview that knows we're all equal and like, how can we figure this out? So it was in sort of the baseline understanding that I was like, I guess I'm going to talk about this. And when I started saying the word out loud, I remember going to marketing and networking events and being like, oh my God, can't believe I'm one of these people saying this out loud in a business setting. If I felt like I had to use that word, other people were saying sensitive or highly sensitive. And now more people than I expect know what this is, know what it means. And I admit I'm in a bubble. I'm on the West Coast. I live in Portland, Healer Central. So I know it's not fully mainstream, but it's so like here it's mainstream. I imagine in where you're at, it's mainstream.
Yeah, I love what you're touching on. So many movement makers are usually ahead of their time.
Right.
Right. And I also love you're in Oregon, I'm in San Francisco. San Francisco is the epicenter of all tech innovation and
Yeah.
psychedelics and all of this. And, we're living 50 years in the future
Yeah.
compared to a lot of around the world,
Yeah,
and it can feel
absolutely.
very, very exciting and it can feel difficult because it can
Yeah.
feel very isolating when people aren't using the same terminology.
Mhm.
You're building movements that are sometimes 20 years ahead of when it's going to go mainstream.
Right.
But that's when, it takes a lot of courage to
Yeah.
stand in your own fire and be like, okay, maybe I'm the person that's supposed to bring this torch forward and
Yep.
educate others to bring this into the mainstream.
Yeah. And I do think that is my role. I remember going to see Sonia Choquette do a reading, a workshop in Seattle. And this was 2006, probably. And I talked to her during a break, and she was kind of helping people like, what am I? Am I this? Am I that? And I don't know what I wanted to be at the time, but she's like, you're a teacher. I do remember being disappointed by that. I remember being like, oh,
Mm,
teacher, fine.
yeah.
And it's taken me a while to like own that
You are such a teacher. Yeah.
archetype. Thank you. I
Yeah.
do
And a
own it now.
beautiful one. Yeah.
I appreciate
You have
that.
a
But
lot of wisdom to share.
I think that was the tricky part, is that I knew I was ahead of the curve, and I'm like, "Ugh, who's gonna trust me with this? Like, who's gonna come see me?" And my business was slow going to start. I had to have some support financially just to get through the beginning because nobody understood it. So I was in the position of educating my population while marketing.
Mhm.
Super fun. But I've gotten comfortable with that teacher moniker, and I do think it is what we are as movement makers. We have to be good at educating in a way that opens minds and makes people curious rather than getting too slangy, too jargony, and building kind of that wall where they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Metaphor is your friend, and ways of bridging what is awkward because there isn't a known language to
Mhm.
describe it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I want to shift the conversation, but still in the same framework of as you stepped into your own movement making as an empath, like what did you come across? Because I know, you've really helped me. Like I have this complete fear of visibility that is like
100%.
absolutely terrifying. I
Yep.
also have to be so in integrity that I get in this
Yep.
perfectionism, can't make a mistake because I have to be so in integrity. And I have to
Thanks,
know
cancel culture.
everything. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
that. So what is that
Yeah.
like that's a typical empath.
It is. It is absolutely a typical empath thing. So we're going to slide into a little woo conversation with this.
Please.
what empaths are 9 times out of 10, I believe we all are reincarnated. All humans are reincarnated. Our souls live on. After we die, we just change form, and we can choose to come back in a body again if we want to. We don't have to. And many of us have been here many, many times because we are on this teaching path. We are wanting to help humanity evolve. And part of our history is being alive at times when it wasn't safe to do that. So most of us women, empaths, have been persecuted in past lives
Burnt
many,
at the
many
stake.
times over, burned at the stake, killed by an angry mob. Yeah, all kinds of teaching wounds, wounds where we were either the teacher or the student of someone who was killed. So we have a natural to us aversion to being in that spotlight and speaking about these topics to the general public. And it was so, because I was in business, the year I divorced or separated, I was the president of a local women's networking and charitable organization. And it was about 100 members. I had been the vice president the year before and been in it about, I don't remember now, 4 or 5 years. And I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. I had been to meetings where someone who was a massage therapist or even woo adjacent, and I had seen everyone's reaction to them. I was like, I can't possibly go to a networking meeting. And I have this business that I need clients for. And this was pre-pandemic. So I couldn't pay people to see me did this way through a video. And that is how I do all of my work now. So times have definitely changed, but then it was a different world. So I remember standing in the shower, bawling my eyes out because I had to go to a networking meeting. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I have to do it. You can do, like, talking to myself up. And it was the best thing I ever did. It ended up being not a great group long term, but I met the people who were like me, who I needed to know existed in order to give me the confidence to just keep pushing forward. And that was huge. So step one is community and having enough gumption, gall, courage to do the thing you're terrified of, like even while you're terrified.
Especially when you're
It's
terrified.
not easy.
Yep.
Exactly. So that was one, being in community. I'm a huge fan of masterminds, as you know. And the reason I am is because when you are talking about your business on a regular basis with other people who are doing something similar, maybe different field, but you're in the same kind of position, it really helps change the narrative in your head to make it real. Until then, I think we're pretending on some level, and we don't believe we're ever going to do it. So community is huge. And then the big piece for empaths is we are really turned off by manipulation. Most of us have been in some sort of toxic relationship and had to learn the hard way about boundaries. And that makes what passes for marketing for most people uncomfortable. And how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And I can't tell you how many seminars I went to, the free webinar before the hard sell to the thing that if you pay me, basically my salary for the year, I will help you. And it isn't true. It's almost always some sort of cookie cutter thing that probably works for typical people, does not work for us. So I luckily found some people who validated that for me, and I worked with for a couple of years and kind of got some language and some validation that you can sell in ethical ways. You can sell where it's not a hard sell. And if someone chooses not, and part of this is mindset, capitalism is a pretty toxic culture. And if we believe that every sale we don't get, we've left money on the table, this is a really toxic belief because not every sale is yours. Not every sale has the potential to be yours. You shouldn't want every sale because your people, you're going to help 100%. And you're going to help them in ways They're going to talk about you. They're going to be your champion. And the people who are not your people, oh, it's not going to go well because they're not your people.
I think that's so interesting because for empaths, something that is so well known of empaths is the masking. And
Yes.
so it's really kind of a crazy wild ride when you're coming
Yes.
into thought leadership and movement making, where you want to be nice and friendly to everyone and not stir the pot. And that what you're actually talking about is resonance. And you
Yes.
can't resonate at a deep level if you don't know your own truth, and you have to literally take off that mask. And I
Mhm.
keep saying that like movement making is the pathway to integration, because every
Yes.
single thing is going to have you walk through that fire and that
Yep.
masking part with the resonance, and being able to be really comfortable with disruption and not
Yep.
being everyone's cup of tea. That's like an empath's
Mhm.
nightmare, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually integration
It is.
into, something that you have needed to work on your whole life. I want to take a moment to invite you into something special called Alchemy, a 3-month one on one coaching journey for people who feel called to step into deeper servant leadership. In Alchemy, we weave together the insights of the Enneagram with the sacred container of plant medicine ceremonies so you can understand your patterns, release what no longer serves you, and rise as the leader that you're meant to be. If you've been feeling the pull to step into your gifts and serve from a place of clarity and integrity, I'd love to walk with you. You can learn more and apply at globalmovementmaker.com/alchemy.
Totally. And I really want to say there have been a couple of people who I'm not even friends with anymore. This one person I'm thinking of, but she gave me permission to do things my way. She was a career counselor at a community college in Portland, and she was in the first mastermind I was ever in. And I was like getting a lot of pressure from my ex to sell and market in a specific way. And I was like, I'm not comfortable on the phone. It's not where I'm strongest. I think I'm better via email. She's like, I want you to use the tools that exist. I do not want you to torture yourself and do it in a way that you know you're not good at. You might get good at that someday, but let's wait for that to happen because that's torture for you. And this is not the point of life. And I was like, what? What? This is long before I had any idea about well, I had an idea about a lot of this because I've been on a spiritual quest my whole life. But this acceptance of who we are, particularly as empaths, our limited capacity. You and I have another thing in common, which is chronic illness. And that's another capacity thing. And it's okay to build a business at a capacity that you can do. And if you try to build a business at the way society tells you to build a business, you won't last in business. You will burn out. And I, at this point, am unhireable. So I can't go back to pretending that someone is going to see my resume and go, oh my God, you're perfect for this. I have to do this. This is what I'm here to do. But it really did take me learning deeply in my soul that fitting in, which was the goal of my childhood, I was not aware of this goal. This was not conscious. This was deeply unconscious. Masking to fit in could not be how I moved forward in life.
Yep.
And that mask comes off all the time. I don't think it'll ever stop coming off. And there have been big shifts with, the initial part where I'm like huge changes. And now it's just like the micro adjustments. But even, this chronic illness is the new phase of realizing capacity is something I have to actually figure it out. And my typical way of finding flow and go, 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 go until I crash and burn, if I keep that up, I can't sustain a business.
I
So,
love that you just, yeah, brought in the chronic illness. I mean, I'll have you back on the show just so we can have a whole thing on that, because
yeah.
I think that's so important.
Yep.
And yeah, it's interesting in my own building the Movement Maker incubator, like I have a module around energy management. And at this moment in time, I tell my people, like, hey, this is my one of my best modules because I have become, I've read every single book, I've gone to every single retreat, I've tried every single thing in the under the sun. But it actually is, it's a weird, and I don't know if you would agree with this, and maybe this is just like my Pollyanna part of me, but
Mm-hmm.
I do feel also like this chronic illness is part of my pathway to being the movement maker that I need to be,
I think
because
so.
I need to really balance the masculine and the feminine, the modern strategy, the ancient wisdom within my own soma, because I think that on a energetic level, globally, we, especially in the
Yep.
Western world, we don't have that balanced.
Right.
And it's interesting because pretty much every single person that I know, I'm wondering if you have seen reports. I haven't actually looked into this, but every single person that I know is female and an empath that I know that has chronic illness. Is there a correlation
Mm-hmm.
to that, or
Yeah,
I don't know.
there
I
is.
would think so.
I think that if I'm listing off things that make you an empath, I actually think autoimmune disease is one of the things I would list.
Literally.
I think it's causal. It's like this nervous system we have is a big deal. It's a big deal to be this sensitive. And, nobody has researched things, I shouldn't say ever, but there's people coming up in the ranks now. I will say TikTok and the internet in general has been a game changer in understanding my health challenges once I hit 45. And without it, I'm not sure I would have figured out what was going on with me because doctors aren't trained to, new doctors are learning. But most doctors, I mean, and I was seeing naturopaths who I believed would be more curious about figuring root cause and whole body stuff. And they're like, you're fine. And I'm like, look, your numbers. And I'm like, yeah, great. My numbers, fantastic. But I feel terrible.
Right, exactly.
And finally did. So yeah, I think it's all in there. And I do weirdly think it's an evolution. Not that we're sicker, but that we have to recognize it makes zero sense that we're on this planet to work our asses off to pay to live on this planet. Like that makes zero sense in a holistic way. That doesn't make sense. Are we anywhere close to living out what it should be or could be? No. No, we're not. We're going to be in this capitalist system for probably the rest of my life. My only hope is that we begin to augment it with things like maybe universal health care, universal income, something. And
So when you bring those things
all
to
of
the
those
table,
things.
so that's
Yeah.
what empaths like that's just like the foundation of
Right.
empaths. So can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
like what is the role of empaths in this new world then? Because you're calling in universal health
Yeah.
care, you're calling in universal income, but if most of the world isn't built like we're so individualized and mine. So the
Yes.
role of the empath is actually the leaders of the new world.
I think so. Yeah.
Hmm.
I somewhere have a paper I wrote on what energetically I think is happening is that this world is being run by the third chakra, a damaged, unhealed third chakra, where we seek power over. As empaths, we usually start off this world in a heart-centered space, meaning as little children, we are operating from this heart, and we will continue to do that until we get hurt too many times. And then our usually healing time is like, done with that. I don't
Yeah, defense
trust, I'm
mechanism.
not doing that. So we end up having to heal the heart and the third chakra. So as empaths, I think our role is to heal the brokenheartedness of not fitting in and not being like other people, and people wanting to control us because they need what we offer, which is healing and love. And every empath I know has some relationship in their life where they were the caretaker and shouldn't have been. They should have been cared for. And we're all healing from that. And as we do, as we heal the heart and learn to trust, we then have to heal the third chakra and not do it to other people. And healed chakra means is about power, and it's power with. It's collaboration and cooperation versus competition and hierarchy. Because in an empath's heart, hierarchy is not a thing.
I think it's so interesting because in my own journey, I've actually had
Mm-hmm.
to learn to take more power.
Right.
So my
Exactly.
work is actually to be more
Exactly.
selfish, take up more room, and
Right.
think actually more about myself than other people. Because a huge thing about empaths is their
Yep.
energy is like out and kind of scanning
That's
everything
right.
around them and taking everyone else's energy in. And it wasn't until I was actually, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute, let me notice my own energy, my own needs. How am I actually looking out for myself in this contract and this partnership? Because I was running myself, as you know, into the ground. And then
Mm-hmm.
another part that I also want to touch on, you talked about the caretaking role. And I mean, yeah, every single partnership, friendship, co-working space. I mean, I was caretaking and running the whole show.
Yep. Yep.
And that is something that I still really struggle with, like in my own movement making. And, so can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
boundaries, especially when stepping
Yeah.
into leadership and movement making?
Yep. And I think this is the journey of every empath. It is, mo there's a lot of people I've met along the way who are like, if you're such a great healer, why do you still have clients? I'm like, oh, you're cute. You think that healing has an endpoint and that we
Right,
arrive at a
exactly.
point at which we're
Exactly.
healed. Yeah,
That's cute.
that's not a thing.
I wish.
Very cute. I so wish, believed in that wholeheartedly for a long time. But what I see our real job as empaths is to take up enough space, feel that we deserve to have enough power to be generous. And you can't be generous if you feel taken advantage of, if you feel like everyone is picking at you and taking little bites till you have nothing left to give. So, in order to be able to be generous, which is our natural heart, every empath knows this. We have to be strong enough to say no and rest when we need rest and trust the universe enough that if we say no to this, other opportunities will come. It is our own journey around trusting right relationship with the universe because it's a dance. We are in partnership with spirit. Spirit's not controlling the game, and we are not controlling the game. I had a teacher who would talk about my will versus thy will. And I love that because I certainly know my share of, and I might be a little controlling at times, but I certainly know a lot of people who try to control the universe, make something happen. And I know well enough as an Aries, I can make shit happen. But is that a good thing? And I have learned that if it's not good for me, if it's not meant for me, I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm not going to keep it. Only if I have done the work to own it can I keep it. And that means taking care of myself and saying no when I need to say no and knowing what real true boundaries are. Because we all go through the phase of, I'm done being taken advantage of. Nobody's going to take advantage of me again. And we have these walls. And I think that's a part of the journey. I don't begrudge anyone being in that space, but I hope that they know they can't live there forever and be happy. They have to learn to trust again. And yeah, that's the dance, healing the third chakra and our power relationship so that we can take up the space we need, say no when it's appropriate, lean into and trust that there is a yes for us out there, and then lead all of that with an open heart and not a Pollyanna or what do they call bleeding heart liberal. I'm not talking about bleeding hearts. I'm talking about whole hearts. And whole hearts are strong.
Yeah, yeah,
They can
absolutely.
say no,
Amen to
thank you.
that.
And it's a journey. And it's why I love this work. I love seeing people come from that space of not being able to say anything for themselves to being able to say no and then yes and then I don't know, but I'll get back to you and continue to grow from there. And that is how empaths have to. It's stage one of how we rule the world
Stage one of how
because
we rule the
we
world. I
can't
love that.
We can't go head to head against a narcissist because a narcissist will go where we're not willing to.
Yep.
So we have to charm offensive and guerrilla warfare. It's being where they don't expect us to be because we're harmless.
Yep.
One of my favorite things about the first Trump administration and the hearings on January 6th that the House did was Cassidy, I'm not going to think of her name, but the woman who was the assistant to his chief of staff. They said everything in front of her because they didn't see her as a threat. She's just a girl, young girl.
Yep.
And that's the way we do it, is by being unpredictable, because their model of warfare right now is power over, power over. And if you're not playing that game, I'm not playing power over. Yeah. I want everyone to win.
Yep. Yeah, it's two of my values for Movement Maker. One is connection to source, and then the other one is embodied wisdom. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about, because if you're getting really connected with source and really connected to the intuitive calling, that is right on the money. And then the other part is that embodied wisdom, where we're really returning to our body temple, and learning how to balance our calling and our body and our humanity. And also returning to the soma, we realize that the body has actually all the answers that we've been looking for outside of ourselves, right?
Always.
And I don't think that I think that that's actually part of the revolution, if not the whole revolution, is to return to source, return to our bodies. And these hierarchical systems are designed to actually keep us. I mean, we could have a whole topic around why psychedelics are not legalized. It's not because they are bad for you. It's because it literally returns you to source, and it returns you to your body temple. And so it's just all control mechanisms.
100%. And that is the goal of these types of regimes. It makes me really existentially sad to see what we're dealing with.
Yep.
And it's the only thing I learned my whole life, is that what's happening now is bad. And now they're like, no, this is what it's supposed to be. I'm like, yeah, no, that isn't going to work with me. And it's not going to work with me because I healed, because I learned not to be manipulated. And the reason he's successful is because so many people haven't learned, or they are narcissists and like that archetype, like the strong man. And we're 100th monkey in it. And that is why I do this work. One person at a time, because the ripple effect is far. It may not seem like it, but it is. And I'm not the only person doing this.
Well, I love that you bring that up, because, when people talk about like, what is a movement, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's different definitions in my book for movements. And I actually do think that someone that can be a coach that's working one-on-one with that big vision, you're still working one-on-one, but you have I'm going to change the world, mentality. Right. And so it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of people. It can be, and who knows, maybe you were working with me, who I'm going to be now working with all of these big movement makers. Absolutely. Like, that is a movement, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So I just really wanted to kind of double click on that, because I think that's really important.
I do too. And I think that for people, empaths out there who are struggling with this time because it seems so against our natures and scary, I think that is, we have to remember the underneath it all. The underneath it all, things happen every single day. And we've already come too far for this to dig in, and we're too big of a population for him to get the control he really wants. It's not going to mean he's not going to fuck things up. He is right now. But it's going to be a mess. But I also don't think we could get where we ultimately want to be without taking apart what is inherently broken in this country: systemic racism, white supremacy, misogyny. Those things, as we see daily, are the basis of this movement, is taking apart women, people of color, and the disabled.
Well, I think you and I have talked about this before, where I'm actually, I think that Trump is actually completely doing his karmic assignment. And without Trump, he
Yes.
is just showing us our shadow work, right? And so it's dialing it
Absolutely.
up of something that has been there forever.
Yes.
And so in some ways I'm grateful for Trump. And,
Yeah, right.
this is why I created Movement Maker. And to go to
Yeah.
your point, like the importance of community right now is more important than ever, especially
Yeah.
I'm reminded of like Timothy Leary, the quote, find the others, right?
Yeah.
So, like
Yeah.
uniting these empaths, uniting these people that are for humanity and have
Mhm.
these same value systems as yours, because
Yeah.
movements aren't created in isolation, they're
Mm.
created in momentum and partnerships.
Yep, absolutely. Doing on that topic and resistance and the idea of fighting back. The other thing I want to say is there's a lot of ways to resist. So if you are someone like us who is challenged with health problems, you can still participate in resistance or and then I'm also always challenged by resistance because what we resist persists. So maybe it's about not resisting, not completely resisting what's happening, because we know there's a good side to it as well. It's projecting outward what we want to happen, what we see, so that other people can go, oh, that would be lovely. Let's try for that. Because this isn't like we've been in a fight, a tug of war over left and right, Republican and Democrat for 100 years, longer. That isn't the fight that we're in. That isn't going to get us where we want to go. And if we focus there, we're going to stay in this fight. So we got to project outward with movements, something for people to care about and invest in and work towards.
In my Movement Maker incubator, I have people listen to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech again. And
Mm-hmm.
most of us haven't re listened to that since like grade
Correct.
school. It's incredible because what he
Mm-hmm.
does is he doesn't say, I have a plan. What he
Right.
says is, I have a dream. And he
Yep.
literally calls people into this dream that is actually
Yep.
based on universal law. And
Yep.
so that's why, like, to everyone, it hits them
Yeah.
to this day.
Yep.
And so I think I think we're missing that I have a dream moment because we're
Yeah.
not really sure what we're dreaming into. And I think that's what I'm so excited about with
Yep.
Movement Maker is building kind of coalitions of movement makers together and dreaming of what is the dream that we're stepping into? What is this new
Amen.
world? Yeah.
Have we talked about Rutger Bregman?
No, never heard of them.
Look him up. He is a Dutch historian. He spoke a couple of years ago. He was invited to Davos to the World Economic Forum, and he was on a panel with a bunch of billionaires. He's to this day is like, I don't know who invited me. I don't know why I'm here. But he spoke.
Source invited him.
Yeah, exactly. He spoke truth to power because I don't remember. I think it might have been Michael Dell, but don't quote me. Who said basically you can't no nothing no strong economy has ever been built out of higher taxes for
Mm.
billionaires. And he's like, no, United States in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, you got the 1950s out of
Mm.
taxes, 92% tax to the highest
Wow.
over X percent of earnings, whatever X percent was, everything after that is 100%, almost 100% tax rate. So it's not true. It isn't true. They just don't like it. But
Right.
nobody suffered. These rich people didn't suffer a day. It's just great. Anyway, he has written 3 books. I have read 2. I read the second book, which is Humankind, where he does a big deep dive into what is the nature of humans. Is it good? Is it bad? Ultimately settles on, no, we're good, because if we weren't, it would be a bloodbath and we'd be gone. But the problem is civilization. Every time we form civilization, we fuck it up. It just becomes hierarchy hell. And then 2, the second book I read is called Moral Ambition. And he just came out with it this year. And this is his treatise to people who are frustrated with what is happening in the world. Do something with it. Build a movement. Do something with it. So he has a website called moralambition.org, and it's kind of an extension of the book and trying to help people create what they want to see in the world because it's morally what they want to see in the world. And yeah, it's a great book. He's a very cool guy, bringing a really important perspective into the conversation.
Yeah, I'll
And
definitely
he's
check it
Dutch,
out.
so it's not that American
Okay.
bias.
Good.
It's really good.
Outside perspectives are important right now. Yeah, it
Big
reminds
time.
me of years ago, I went to the United States of Women's Conference, and
Yeah.
Michelle Obama was there when she was a first lady.
Mm.
And, people were yelling out to her basically like, do this, do that, save
Yeah.
us, do this. And she literally got up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she looked to the crowd and she said, save your own damn self. And it was
Yeah.
so true. We're always
Yeah.
waiting for someone else to save us, and that's not
Yeah.
happening. So I think that
It's
this is the
not.
time for
It's
true
not.
activism. And I love that
Yeah.
you bring up that you can come in at your own capacity. Like
Yep.
we're all doing
Yep.
our own part, and you don't have to hold all of this. You can
No,
just be one small piece of the puzzle, and that's totally
exactly.
fine. Yeah.
And try not to get too sunk by what you see projecting forward. And remember that it doesn't take much to shift everything. And we don't know what is possible and what, intervention might happen. No one's going to come and save us. We do have to be involved. But things can shift that open up areas we didn't see coming, options we had missed. So until something becomes reality, we're still capable of changing an outcome.
Yep.
And even after that, we're still capable of changing the impact of that outcome.
Yep. Yep. Well, you hear that,
Yeah.
listeners. We have hope still. So I'm going to be wrapping this up on that note because I think that it's good to end on a positive one. And Laura, would love for you to tell people, how do they get a hold of you? How do they work with you? Yeah.
Yes. My website is thevitalspirit.net, and there is a lovely contact page to figure out how to contact me in what format. I am available for a one-on-one work. I do some group work. I also have a community you can find on that site for empaths. At the moment, it's free, but that's likely changing. I don't know how soon. So you're probably free for now to join, but it's a place to meet with like-minded people. We have some monthly activities. And yeah, those are and on LinkedIn, all that is there too.
Awesome. And just to give Laura a testimonial, I mean, really, I could not have gotten to the place of movement maker and stepping into all of this without her help. So big time, lots of love to you, lots of appreciation. And I'm excited to potentially have you on again because there's just so much conversation to be had. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
All right, you bet. Thank you for listening to The Call to Rise. If today's conversation stirred something in you, subscribe and share it with a fellow movement maker. And join our community at globalmovementmaker.com. Till next time, keep leading with courage, keep weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy, and always remember to answer the call.